Good morning, good afternoon to all participants who joined today. My name is Francesca Ceni and I work in the Technical Assistance Branch of the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm Convention Secretariat. Today will give a very brief overview to present the mandate for effective participation and coordination in the work of the scientific and technical bodies of the three conventions with an historical perspective. Then I will briefly introduce the benefits for parties and members of such participation and coordination. And finally, I will present an overview of the activities being organized by the Secretariat this year and next year on this topic. Now the mandate. The mandate to enhance effective participation in the work of the CRC and the POPROC to cooperate and exchange information among scientific and technical bodies stems from the synergy decisions. We start in 2008-2009 when the conferences of the parties adopted the recommendations of the ad hoc joint working group, which requested the secretariats to facilitate the exchange of relevant information between technical and scientific bodies of the three conventions through sharing of information with one another. Following this first step in 2010 at the EXCOP1 in Bali, the parties requested the secretariats in the omnibus decision to prepare joint activities to be included in the work plans of the three conventions, being approved in the upcoming ordinary meetings of the conventions, including activities to facilitate the exchange of relevant information between the technical and scientific bodies of the three conventions. Another step, and as a result of this decision, in 2011, the three conferences of the parties included in their respective programs of work a joint activity to enhance cooperation among scientific and technical bodies of the three conventions and to identify common issues and linkages between them. These activities are commonly referred to as S6 and are still included in the program of work of the three conventions. In fact, in 2013, the conferences of the parties adopted the technical assistance program, including activities on cross-cutting issues such as support of the work of the scientific bodies of the Rotterdam and Stockholm Convention, which is now activity 17 in the program of work. Also, in 2013, the omnibus decision adopted at EXCOP2 defined a new mandate for the future by recommending to accelerate the implementation of joint activities between POPROC and CRC in 2014-2015, to align scientific bodies' working arrangements to allow for mutual information sharing and effective participation, and by requesting them to discuss further steps to enhance the coordination between them. Now I will quickly introduce the benefits for parties and members, the benefits stemming from these activities. In particular, the planned activities are targeting past, current and future members of the POPROC and CRC, as well as parties and observers. The benefits for such members and parties of an effective participation and coordination between the two bodies, POPROC and CRC, are threefold. First, the exchange of information on current names of chemicals and risk evaluations of chemicals included in both conventions, which will enhance efficiency of both scientific bodies and will avoid duplication of efforts. Secondly, it will create more opportunities for networking among experts to exchange experiences and support the work of institutions in the UN regions. Finally, it will build capacity. The Secretariat is organizing inception workshops for the CRC members, the new CRC members. Support is provided by the Secretariat in the day-to-day activities and intersessional work of the two working bodies. Webinars and workshops are organized to enhance effective participation of the members from developing countries and countries with economies in transition. We briefly look at the activities under this mandate. For the second time, the meetings of the CRC and the POPROC will be organized back-to-back. The 10th meetings of the CRC and the POPROC will be held in Rome in October 2014, back-to-back. Several webinars are being organized and are taking place on the topic of effective participation and coordination between the two scientific bodies, and workshops will also be organized for members and other stakeholders of CRC and POPROC. Last year, a workshop was organized in Senegal for French-speaking members and countries in Africa. This year, November, December, a regional workshop will be organized for English-speaking African countries and members of both POPROC and CRC. And 2 regional workshops are planned in 2015 under this mandate. I thank you for your attention, and I will now pass the floor to Dan to introduce the next presenters.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks a lot for the Joint Secretariat of Rotterdam Convention and Rotterdam, Basel, and Stockholm Convention. And today we are going to highlight the draft guidance to assist parties to Rotterdam Convention and the CRC when the chemical under consideration is a POP listed under Stockholm Convention. This presentation is composed of 2 parts. I am going to do the first part of it, which is the introductory part, and then my colleague Miriam Singh will go on the rest of the presentation with critical or certain type of examples on how to assist various parties. How can I scroll down this? I start with the background. This guidance was requested by the EXCOP2 in June 2013, and the preparation of this document was initiated by the joint meeting of the CRC and the POPROC, which was held in Rome last year, October 2013. And then a joint intersessional working group prepared the first draft, and including the existing guidance, and this was done in December 2013. Then we allow for 3 commenting rounds, which has been done so far for the task group members. Let's say it's group members, 1 for the CRC and POPROC members, and 2 for the task group members. And then 1 was circulated to all CRC and POPROC members and observers. And this was concluded in June 2014. The draft will be presented to the CRC 10 and POPROC 10, which will be held in Rome in next October 2014. I'm going to go through the various sections and various chapters of the guidance. There are basically 4 sections of the guidance, and truly these 4 sections reflect the chain of events which follow in the process of Rotterdam Convention, so that to minimize the duplication in various parts. So we follow the process, and normally the process starts with the notification of final regulatory action by a party when it's banned or severely restrict a chemical, and then the process will go onto review of notification by the CRC. When the CRC receives 2 notifications from 2 peak regions, then they will initiate the process of revision of the notification. And then if the chemical in question fulfill all the criteria, then the CRC will start drafting the decision guidance document, which is the DDG. And then Once the DGD has been approved by the COP, then it will be circulated for the various parties, and then the parties are requested to submit their import responses after this chemical has been listed in Annex 3 of the Convention. Every chapter addresses parties as well as CRC. So the various parties, some of them they address parties, as well as sometimes some sections refer to CRC. I'm going to go just on the various chapters. The first part deals with the submission of notification of final regulatory action. And this is an obligation, as we all know. It's an obligation to notify the Rotterdam Convention Secretariat that this country X has a national ban or severe restriction of a certain chemical. And so this is an obligation for a party. It has to do it. And if this chemical is a bomb and it has been nationally prohibited or restricted, say for example, by implementation of a Stockholm Convention, that the chemical is subject to Stockholm Convention and the party took a national decision or a final regulatory action to ban or severely restrict this chemical. And so they have to notify the secretaries, and therefore they submit their notification of final regulatory action. Then the CRC also it needs information on the basis on which this final regulatory action is based. So what are the bases? Whether it is based on a risk or a hazard evaluation. So if a risk evaluation is available, and then also the CRC needs some evidence that is prevailing condition within that notifying party has been considered, in addition to other data like POPROC risk evaluation, risk profile, or risk management evaluation. And then another case, sometimes the CRC will find itself with a very huge and voluminous supporting documentation which need to be submitted. And in that case, the CRC, the country is requested to prepare a focus summary. Also, if the main document or the supporting documentation is not in English, then also a focus summary shall be prepared by the notifying party. Then we go on the review of notification by the CRC. If many notifications have been reviewed and the CRC lower priority is given for chemical already subject to other multi-environmental agreements, say for example Montreal Protocol or Stockholm Convention, they will be given less priority to be reviewed by the meeting of the CRC. Because sometimes when they prepare for the CRC, there have been many notifications to be done on the same meeting, and in that case, the CRC has with the bureau, the secretariat with the bureau of the CRC, they will go on prioritization of the work, so that they give lower priority to those chemicals that are already subject to other MIA. And then for the identity of the substance or a group of substances, and this is very important thing to consider, because sometimes there are differences between the chemical which is subject to Rotterdam Convention, that is the national ban or severe restriction, on Stockholm Convention. And sometimes if you look at the notification and the identity, you will find, especially for isomers, esters, and other things, you will find the country notifies some chemicals which, when you look at the risk profile or the risk management evaluation, you will find different identities. So this is also will be considered when the CRC go on review of notification of the final regulatory action. And an important point that we need to put in mind, that the CRC evaluation or recommendation is normally limited to the information received from the notified parties. So it's the information either in the notification or in the supporting documentation. They are not going other than these things. So these are the main areas that is that's the limitation. Then during the review of notification by the CRC will determine if the criteria especially of Annex 3B, triple I is met. And here they look at bridging information. If if a country X use the data from the risk profile or risk management evaluation of Stockholm Convention, then they should show that some information is that they link this information to the local condition within that party. And this is what's called the bridging information. That is, they should indicate in the notification that internal or condition prevailing within that country has been considered. The CRC has already some guidance document on bridging, and it is available so that the countries can make use of it, how to bridge information from other risk evaluation from other countries or from other international evaluations. Also, the Stockholm Convention information is also sometimes also useful and can assist in evaluation by the CRC, especially on criteria C4, and here especially the CRC, they need to show that when they evaluate the notification that there's an evidence on ongoing trade of that chemicals. And here the information from Stockholm Convention on production, on use and releasing, especially other information, requested exemption and so on from the Stockholm Secretariat, they are quite useful, and they can help to indicate that there's an evidence of ongoing trade. And my colleague Miriam also will go on specific examples of this type of information and how the CRC benefit from the information given from the Stockholm Convention. Then the third step, which is done by the CRC, is the development of the decisions guidance document, which is the DGD. And here the information given in the POPROC risk profile or risk management evaluation must be useful and can be used to fulfill certain sections, especially on identification and uses. There are a lot of information in the risk profile risk management evaluation. They can be helpful. Alternative, waste management, these are all relevant sections where CRC can also get benefit from the POPROC risk profile risk management evaluation, and these are quite useful to help parties to take informed decisions. I'll just go quickly, maybe the time is past. Submission, the fourth step, which is submission of import responses after listing the chemical in Annex 3. So if this chemical is the POP has been added to Annex 3, then the country has to submit an import response according to Article 10 of Rotterdam Convention. And to submit this import response, the country sometime, if it's a party to Stockholm Convention, they might need to take some decisions, national decisions, say that they want to import a pan of this chemical. Okay, so these import responses, the decision taken under Stockholm Convention could be useful, especially for certain countries where there's no legal infrastructure, such as industrial chemicals. We know that there are many countries, especially developing countries, they fail to respond their import responses, and therefore they can use data on they can make use of their national decision under Stockholm Convention so that they can use it to make their own decision. And comments received, we receive a lot of comments from different countries as listed. As you see them in the slide, and they are reflected in the table of content. We have some comments from UNIP which has been considered, not yet. And the next step, after consideration by the CRC and POPROC, an intersection drafting group might be tasked to collect additional information and finalize the draft guidance, and it will go to the COP7, maybe to take note or to approve it, and then it might end up with a combination of guidance documents on the RC. I'd like to thank you all for your attention, and by that, maybe I'll turn it back to you, our host. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, and welcome everybody. Thank you for staying on. I will now try to illustrate a bit what my colleague Azari has already presented to you. The examples I will present you are in the same sequence as the structure of the guidance. So we start with the submission of a final regulatory action. There are two examples actually from the same country. Canada has notified a final regulatory actions on octa-BDE and the second one on PFOS. Both chemicals are POPs under the Stockholm Convention. And Canada practically used the same text in several sections of their notification. It is on socioeconomic effects and on relevance of the final regulatory action to other states and regions. And they stated that some of those two chemicals have been identified as POPs under the Stockholm Convention. As a result of past releases, POPs are now widely distributed over large regions, and in some cases they are found around the globe. So this is an example where information from the Stockholm Convention has been used in a final regulatory action to the Rotterdam Convention. There has been a second notification for PFOS from Japan. And Japan has used data from the Stockholm Convention, from the pop rock risk profile in other sections of their final regulatory action. They copied data from the pop rock risk profile into the sections physicochemical properties and toxicological properties. And Japan also added the pop rock risk profile, the whole document, as a supporting documentation to their notification. In this notification, so I will start again on slide number 13 with the example of the notification from Japan for PFOS. Japan used information from the Stockholm Convention in section 241 of their notification, and this is the section on hazard or risk evaluation. And Japan states in the notification that as a result of an internal Japanese evaluation, using the scientific data from the pop rock risk profile, Japan has concluded that PFOS meets the criteria to be designated as a class 1 specified chemical substance, which means that this is a persistent and bioaccumulative substance and therefore is prohibited nationally. Now we go on with the same example, but now in the review of this notification by the CRC. And when the CRC had to check whether criterion B1I and B2I was met, then it is stated in the task group report and also in the CRC meeting report that the data which were used under the Stockholm Convention are considered to be scientifically sound, that they have been generated according to scientifically recognized methods, and that also data reviews were performed and documented according to generally recognized scientific principles and procedures. Then in brackets you'll find the documents where this is laid down. In addition, the exposure data were generated in Japan according to scientifically recognized methods. Then we go on with criterion B3, which is often a very critical step in the CRC evaluation. There, the CRC has to make sure that the prevailing condition in the notifying party have been considered in the national risk evaluation. In this case, the notification from Japan for PFOS, the data from the pop rock risk profile was taken into account in a national risk evaluation together with monitoring data from Japan. And Japan concluded that the existing severe restriction of PFOS to very few essential uses should be maintained in order to protect human health in Japan. And because there was monitoring data from Japan, the CRC concluded that prevailing conditions in the notifying party were part of the risk evaluation. This is just a very small excerpt of a larger reasoning text, and you will find that more detailed text in the DGD for PFOS on page 13. Then we come to criterion C4. The CRC has to make sure that there is evidence, or to consider that there is evidence of ongoing international trade in the chemical under consideration. And there was the example of Mirex, for which the final regulatory action was notified by Canada. And the CRC concluded that two parties to the Stockholm Convention on POPs had requested exemptions from the restrictions on production and use of Mirex, and this has been taken as an indication that there were possibilities for trade in Mirex. So this criterion has been met based on information from the Stockholm Convention. Then we go to the third chapter of the guidance, the preparation of a DGD. And here again, PFOS is a very good example where information from the Stockholm Convention has been used in many different parts of the DGD. For example, in section 1, there's a section called Uses in Regulated Category. And you can see here that from the Stockholm Convention, historicals and current uses were copied. And this also contributes to the content of the DGD. Then in section 3.3 on alternatives, there's a hint that the pop rock has developed guidance on alternative to PFOS, and then comes into the DGD. There's a copy of a very large table of uses and possible alternatives. And so this is very helpful to parties who may use the DGD as an information document before taking national action on PFOS. In section 4.5 on waste management, it is stated that the Basel Convention technical guidelines on environmentally sound management of POPs will soon be updated to encompass also PFOS, together with all new POPs that were listed in the Stockholm Convention in 2009. So this is, well, not very specific information, but one can now take a look out and see if these guidelines have been finished, and if there's a more up-to-date information on waste management for PFOS. And then there's a very large annex to the DGD, Annex 1, and that annex is on the individual properties of the substance. This is divided into several sections, and here, for example, in section 4.1 on environmental fate, there's a statement copied from the pop rock risk profile on PFOS. And this is just a citation which you can then read by yourself. So this was the last example. Thank you very much for your attention, and I would like to give the floor back to the host.